Thanks so much for listening to the Argentina Project podcast. Our next interview had some technical difficulties, and we apologize in advance for the quality of the audio. Welcome back to the Argentina Project podcast here at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. We are excited to have participating today Francisco Resnicoff. He is a foreign affairs advisor to Buenos Aires Mayor Horacio Larreta. Francisco, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First of all, let's quickly talk baseball. I know you've studied in Providence, Rhode Island at Brown University. You were at the Fletcher School at Tufts University in Boston. This is an interesting time for Red Sox fans.
Oh yeah, I'm very, very much excited. When I was living there, was one of the last golden age of the Red Sox with the World Series and everything. So that was more than 10 years ago, or 11 years or 12. So it is great to be to see the Red Sox in the same position again.
And is there anyone else following the World Series in Buenos Aires, or is it you alone?
I think that at this stage, I might be the only one, yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully you have some former classmates you can talk to while you watch the games.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're calling to talk to you about the Urban 20, the U20, which I think is being hosted, is it for the first time ever, along with the G20 in Buenos Aires in Argentina this year? Do I have that right?
Yes, that's right, yeah. First time that the cities are organizing this event, yeah.
That's excellent. So, I mean, at all times, hosting of an event like this, it has two major components, right? I mean, it has the agenda that brings together all of these mayors from around the world, and then it has the idea to showcase the host city. So maybe let's split those in two and talk first about the formal agenda. What do the participants hope to accomplish with this gathering?
Yeah, so this is, I would say, the final point of a process that started 20 months ago, when the mayor of Buenos Aires, Rodríguez Larreta, asked the mayor of Paris, Ana Hidalgo, to co-host an event with the objective of bringing the voice of the cities and the mayors of the largest cities of the world to the G20, under the assumption that cities have a lot to say about the global development agenda and the issues that are being discussed or are usually discussed by G20 leaders. So with that in mind, we organized this project, this process, which in a way for us, it ends next week with the summit. So in that process, we decided with topics which the mayors will discuss. What do we see as the best way to influence and to have a voice in the global development agenda and the issues that the national leaders discuss? And that's why in that process, we ended up with 5 major topics that have a huge impact on cities and in which cities have a lot to say, but at the same time have a huge impact in the global agenda, in the agenda that the G20 leaders discuss. So those topics are the future of work and how that is changing all around the world. That has a very obvious urban component. Social integration for the same reasons, not only in terms of access to infrastructure and public works and everything like that, but also the huge problem, dilemma that many cities are facing independently of the level of income, which is related to how to integrate young people, how to integrate religious minorities, how to integrate many groups that now, in a way, disengaged from the social. And the third main topic, I would say, is climate change. And there's a very obvious connection between what cities can do and the impact that they might have. So, for example, you are very much aware that when a country decides or a president decides to back an international agreement such as the Paris Agreement, then to a big extent where are the cities and the local governments and the civil society which is responsible to get it done. So that's why we think climate change and is one of the issues that cities should discuss and should use in a way to enrich the G20 agenda.
Or Francisco, when a president in the United States decides to leave a global agreement like the Paris Agreement, it falls to mayors and governors to react and to potentially continue that type of commitment. That leads me to my next question for you, which is, it's become common to emphasize how influential on the global stage subnational authorities have become in recent years. We certainly have seen that in the United States. Is this a phenomenon you're seeing as well in Argentina? I mean, your role would suggest, yes, you are an undersecretary for international affairs for the mayor of the Argentine capital. I guess that suggests a global agenda for the city government.
Yeah, for sure. I see that as a phenomenon that I would say is general all over the world, specifically in the last, I would say, 20 years. Many cities around the world and many organizations that group cities and many think tanks and multilateral development banks have started to see in cities a new actor in the global order. So, and that's the same thing happening in Asia, in Europe, and in Africa as well, for example. And I think that has a very clear component or a very clear, I would say, base, which is that cities in the last 20 years have become huge hubs of innovation, of development, of design and implementation of public policies. So we have accumulated a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise on what cities can do and what's the impact in the global agenda. So that's why I think now we are at a time in which we propose cities to have a voice in those debates. That voice is being heard in the last few years. There are many instances that have emerged to discuss cities' problems, cities' issues, and in the last few years, I would say a lot of connections between the local agenda and the global agenda. So that I think explains why the Urban 20 has been so successful so far.
I know we just have a few minutes left, but speaking of a global agenda, I know Mayor Rodríguez Larreta was recently traveling. He was in San Francisco in the United States. He was talking to Silicon Valley companies about presumably investing in Buenos Aires. Can you just talk for a minute about that trip?
Yeah, sure. So that's interesting because we combined the participation in a huge summit that happened in San Francisco a month ago, which was the Global Climate Action Summit of California, but many local governments from around the world to discuss the climate agenda and the role of subnational governments. We took advantage of that participation to bring 15 of the most innovative and most promising tech companies in Buenos Aires, and we tried to organize an agenda and to go together, the city, the private sector, but also the universities, to present the city as a global hub for innovation. So those 15 companies, I'm sure you know about this, but of the 6 or 7 unicorns, this is technological companies with a valuation of more than $1 billion from Latin America. 6 of them, from the 6, 4 of them are from Buenos Aires. So we do have a huge talent base, a very prepared human capital, and what we are trying to do is try to combine the efforts of the cities, of the education and academics ecosystem, and the companies, and try to work together to present the city as a hub for innovation. So the agenda was great. We had many meetings with experts, and I think we are on the right track on trying to work together as a team.
Let me just end by asking about the mayor himself and his future now back in Argentina. As the next year's presidential election approaches, there's quite a bit of speculation as to whether President Mauricio Macri will be the Cambiemos candidate in the election or whether another popular and successful member of the coalition might emerge as the consensus candidate. And of course, the mayor is one of the names frequently mentioned, given his successes running the city as former Mayor Macri's successor. Is that something that's discussed in the corridors of the City Hall?
No, not at all. I mean, we are part of the same team, but we are very clear what the roles of us are. And I'm not the one to say anything about this because I'm not in that position, but I'm pretty sure that the mayor will seek re-election, and the same is true for the president and many other members of the Cambiemos coalition. So there's absolutely no discussion here about that.
Francisco, thank you so much for talking to us about the U20 that you'll be hosting in Buenos Aires, about the mayor's trip to San Francisco for the climate summit, and to meet with local tech leaders. And we greatly appreciate your participation in our discussion here. Our executive producer for today's episode was Sam Aladef. Our editor and sound engineer was Mauro Di Pietro. Thank you for listening.